Hey guys, welcome back to the Tea Party Podcast. It's the podcast where you find new friends and new music. And this week I am joined by a Danish artist who currently resides in my home state of Washington. She just put out a new Christmas song this year and is here to share the story of her journey. Let's welcome to the show, Miss Jessica Lynne Witty. Jessica, how the heck are you, friend?
I'm good, Ty. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
I am doing well. We're recording this on a Friday, so it's nice and relaxed, and we get to look forward to the weekend. Exactly. Well, I am excited to get to know you a little bit and to let everybody hear this new song that you put out. So we'll tee off with Jessica next.
It's time to tee off with Ty and today's guest, Jessica Lynne Witty. Here comes the first four.
Okay, here we go, Jessica. Question number one. If you couldn't be in the entertainment industry, what job would you have?
You know, I've always said I would be, I would have something to do with horses, whether it be breeding them or riding them or teaching other people to ride them. It would be something equestrian, that's for sure.
Okay, I like it. Okay, how about this? If I give you the control of the music at a party, what's that first song that you're going to play every time to get everybody up and moving?
Ooh, interesting. Wow. I'm not much of a DJ, so hold on. Let me think. That's I would probably put anything Michael Jackson on.
Okay, that is a good choice too.
Yeah, I'm thinking like Bad or Man in the Mirror, something like that. Everybody loves Michael Jackson.
So, true confession here. My favorite song of all time is Man in the Mirror.
There you go. See? You'd
There's
be up
something special about that one. Exactly. You're crushing this so far. 2 for 2. Okay, this one will make you think a little bit.
Okay.
If you could bring a character from a TV show, movie, book, any fictional character out there to life, who would it be?
Ooh. You know, I would probably bring the young Dumbledore to life.
Ooh, okay.
Yep, I'm a big Harry Potter fan. And honestly, just the whole world of wizardry sounds amazing to me. So if I could bring the greatest wizard of all time to life, that's what I would do. Plus, it doesn't hurt that he looks like Jude Law. So
well, that too. I'm sure that definitely helps. We're going through right now and introducing my son to the Harry Potter series. So we just started Goblet of Fire last night. He is itching to get back home from school so that we can finish it.
That's awesome.
Okay, here we go. Last question of the first 4. If you could have an unlimited supply of anything, tacos, guitar strings, whiskey, scotch tape, whatever, what would it be?
Danish licorice, endless supply.
Ooh, is that different than the normal licorice?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Definitely. I feel like I'm going to have to find some.
I'll hope you find some.
I like it.
I know places. I have secret places that I know where you can get Danish licorice.
Okay. I'm going to have to hit you up for that. But
all right. Sounds good.
That was the first 4, Jessica. Thank you so much for playing along. But now let's pull back the curtain a little bit and give everybody a chance to really get to know who you are. Give us kind of the Cliff Notes version of growing up and tell everybody how you got from Denmark to Tacoma.
Yeah, that's not an easy skip and a jump, is it? So Cliff Notes version. Stop me if it gets too long. I grew up in a small town in Denmark. My dad's American, my mom's Danish. They divorced when I was young, and I grew up in a very strict religious household. And I grew up kind of listening to everything but country music. So when I was about 12, 13 years old, I heard the new country, like classic country music, for the first time, and I was sold. Pun intended, John Michael Montgomery. So I was sold, and I loved it. It's been my first true musical love, where I just felt like my heart was in it. And it took me a long time to even get on the path. Even it took me a stint of living in Barcelona and a trip to India before I even considered. Wow. Before I even considered moving over here and doing what I've always dreamt to do, which is become a country artist. So I was probably 28 when I was very unhappy. And, I've tried that life without music thing, and it sucks. So I decided to let more music into my life, and that put me on a path that led me here to right now Tacoma, Washington. I spend a lot of my time in Nashville, so I got to include that as well. And it's been about a decade of just following my dream. So was that Cliff Notes enough?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now I get to ask a bunch of questions about that.
Yeah.
You were super young when you kind of discovered country music. Was that something that you had already been thinking about being an artist and wanting to follow that path before you found country music, or did that all kind of come about at the same time?
Well, I think I've always wanted to be a singer. I've always wanted to be on stages. I've always written songs just as far back as I can remember. But because of the strict religious upbringing, it wasn't really an option. That's just not anything anyone entertained where I came from. And this is not very Danish. This is very religious. So Denmark, religion is kind of something that doesn't really exist. So I was already weird. But in Denmark, they don't really have any country music either, at least not for the last, 30 years. Country music has just been something. Like I told my mom, hey, I opened for Trey Sack, and she's like, who? So I mean, it's like, it was really just a chance that I heard it. And my mom would listen to, Patsy Cline and Jim Reeves, like some of the old stuff. That didn't really catch me in the same way that the song Wild One by Faith Hill did, because that song, like, it felt like she was singing about me. And then I started really pursuing, like, okay, well, what? That opened up the door for songwriting for me too, because I would be so drawn to the way that the songs were shaped. And then I started trying to emulate that. So I had a ton of songs that I wrote when I was a teenager, just because I was inspired by all the good songwriting of the 90s.
Well, and you mentioned something there, and this is a very American-centric way to look at this. But in America, when you think of religion, especially Christianity, specifically, country music is almost just intertwined with the religion. I mean, almost completely. Obviously, there's some shoot-offs for gospel and everything, but was that something when you started looking into country music and then you saw how it was involved in in the religious culture in America? How much of a shock was that to you growing up in such a religious household without the country music?
It was, well, that's a really good way of looking at it, because I actually found, how a lot of, when it's a really, really strict denomination of Christianity, which is what I grew up in, a lot of the stuff that, like, a lot of the pop music was kind of frowned upon because it was, it was worldly and it wasn't good for our ears and all that stuff. Well, country music had that wholesomeness that I really loved. And I was very religious myself at the time, because that's all I knew. So I'd say I'm still spiritual, not religious. So it was one of those things that I found a nice combination of the two that made sense to me. It still was frowned upon to pursue a career in it, but for my teen years, that made a lot of sense to me to find something like country music that had some wholesome, good old values roots.
Well, then you took that, and it sounds like you moved around the world a little bit. Was that what was the push behind that? Was there something else driving you to kind of explore everywhere?
Well, I mean, I took about a decade away from music entirely and climbed the corporate ladder, did what all my friends were doing, lived a normal life, quote unquote. And it made me very unhappy. And so a lot of I spent some time in Barcelona. I was studying art because it was like the closest thing I could come to music without pursuing a musical career. So I studied visual arts and installation arts and stuff like that, fine art. But by the time I was 28, when I had that kind of awakening moment, I was so unhappy, and I had to think back to, when was I the happiest in my life? And I thought back to 6th grade choir. That's how far back I had to go. And I was like, wow. So I joined a choir, and it was actually a gospel choir, even though by now I had completely removed myself from from my old religion. And then I got really burnt out with the corporate job. So I went to India to become a yoga teacher, actually. Okay. And then I decided down there, I found out, oh, wait, I need to go to the States and be a country singer. And that's what I need to do. So, you know how life kind of hurls balls at you and you just kind of have to dodge. That's what that time felt like for me. It was very much about searching and figuring out who I am. And that there's just one life, this one life, how do I want to live it?
So then eventually you end up in America, you end up in Washington State, in Tacoma. What was the push for Tacoma? Because I've been there and it's a great city, but I'm not sure if I was, I had traveled around the world, that Tacoma would be the place that I'd end up.
You know what? Probably me neither. But I actually started out in Seattle, and my dad lives up close to Seattle on the east side. So there was a family thing there that could help me get started in a brand new country, because I'd never lived here. I'd only ever just visited. So my dad was able to help me out in the first few years, and I needed a day job. I needed to wait. So I taught some yoga classes and did some other work. And so it was more having a network and having some people I could rely on for the first while. And then I kind of stuck around. I met my husband up here. And he's a great partner in actually being able to do what I do. So it's turned out well. And I do love it up here, but there's definitely part of me that feels like is tired of traveling back and forth, because I spend so much time in Nashville now that I might as well move there.
I bet that is not a short trip from Washington State out to Tennessee.
I know. And I spent about half my time there. So like 2 weeks out of the month. So that's a lot.
So you are very familiar with those with the airplanes.
The airplanes and I, we've found a way to get along.
Well, and I think the Seattle area to me is such an interesting part of the country, because for people that don't live there, they just think airplanes, water, coffee, rain. But really, when you start digging into all the little communities out there, there really is kind of this blue collar community that sort of encircles the Seattle Tacoma area. I graduated high school in Kitsap County, which is a very blue collar kind of area, and from that you get a lot of country music. And I think there's a very underappreciated country music scene in that area. Is that kind of what you found when you ended up there?
Yeah, I think I like that you use the word underappreciated, because a lot of times when artists big country acts go on tour, they kind of don't want to go all the way up here. And that's sad, because there's a lot more country music fans here than you would think. Right? As soon as you're outside the cities, it's rural, and you have a lot of, like you said, blue collar, and a lot of country music listeners and truck drivers and fishing people. And, it gets real rural real fast. Wow. Say that 5 times fast. But you're right. And it's underappreciated in the sense that people don't expect it. They don't expect there to be as many country fans up here. So they kind of bypass the area, and the country music fans out here can feel a little left out by that. So that's very true.
And you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I mean, it surprises me how many big arena type country shows end up on the east side of the state, in the Spokane or Tri-Cities or Yakima area even, that don't make it over to Seattle, because there's this stigma that it's still stuck in the 90s grunge kind of era.
Yeah. And I'd say, I don't think it's stuck in the grunge era, but it is, I mean, like downtown Seattle and just the greater Seattle area is the city. Yeah, you're not going to find a lot of venues to play downtown. It's not. And the Gorge is a good place to have one of those, like the Gorge in George Washington. Yeah, is a great place to have some of these bigger concerts, and that's on the other side of the mountains. But a lot of people do the Tacoma Dome, or what used to be Quest Field or Quest, or no, what was, yes, CenturyLink.
Yeah.
The big arena shows, there is plenty. There are plenty of people up here that are willing to, that would love more arena shows, more bigger acts coming through. So, but then they learn to focus on the local scene, and that's great. That's a great little, extra payoff we get from that. So,
yeah, and you're right. I mean, when I start thinking about smaller venues out there that typically have country type shows, I mean, you've got places like the Showbox, but that's kind of a mixed venue and mostly rock or bigger shows like that. I guess you've got the Tractor Tavern there. But then once you start getting outside of the city, like you said, there's a lot more opportunity. And for you, you've kind of lived in that area between Seattle and Tacoma and on the east side, and you've seen kind of this music scene over the last decade or so kind of morph itself. Being a songwriter, a country artist in that area, how much does that sort of Seattle sound? I know there's a lot of country artists in the area that still kind of pull some of that rocky sound. And I mean, listening to your music, it almost sounds like you've got a little bit of that in the background as well. Would I be incorrect in that?
No, I think that's actually true. I never thought of it, but I'm sure I absorb whatever it is that I'm around. If you look at someone like Brandi Carlile or Brandi Clark, got a couple of Brandys coming out of here. They both have some of those elements to them. And I think it's just a matter of, what you grew up with for me in the last decade, what I was soaking up, I should say. They grew up here, but I didn't. But what I've been soaking up around me. And I'd say there's also a lot more alternative country and Americana around here. That kind of takes the precedence, because the mainstream country is kind of bypassed a little bit, like we just talked about. Then the alternative country and the Americana scene, and there's all these subgenres of country and Americana that then get more attention. I think that's great. It's great. It turns into its own thing then, right?
Definitely. And you've been kind of immersed in that area and in the, I guess, Washington State kind of country scene for a while. And it's been good to you. You won the Texaco Country Showdown. You've won awards around the globe, really. How much of a confidence boost is that for you when you're not just nominated for an award, but when you actually are able to win an award in places like the UK or the Texaco Country Showdown?
It's definitely a confidence booster. When I look at those things, I enter because I want to. It's not so much for me as a personal confidence booster, because I mean, is it great? Yes, of course, it's awesome. It feels like, okay, I'm doing something right here. But it's also a matter of being able to, write it on your resume. It's a resume booster. So when I'm getting talked up to hosts such as yourself or by my publicist, then she'll be able to say, oh, and this happened. And it can be, but it definitely feels good to be picked out among a bunch of other well-deserving peers as the one that stood out. And that as anything, it's a nice pat on the shoulder. So obviously it does confidence boost as well as add to the resume.
Well, I think that's a good time to kind of transition into one of the things that makes you, and that's your songwriting. When you sit down and you look at some of those songs that have had success for you, and you sit down to write a new song, do you try and stick with kind of a magic formula that's worked in the past, or is each song its own kind of masterpiece?
Oh, masterpiece. That's a big word. But each song has its own thing to do in the world, the way I see it. I definitely always try my best to write better and better. I think the only thing I fear is going backwards. I don't like, I don't want to be slacking just because something turned out well. Now I can just kind of sit on my laurels. On the contrary, I feel even more tension because I feel like, ooh, now I have to do it better than that. and that won me an award, right? Or something like that. So there's definitely an element of I keep trying to outshine myself. But as for the songwriting, I just write. And if a song isn't good enough per se, I just don't put it out. I may let my Patreon listen to it, see what they say. But I have many songs that I write that never see the light of day, so to speak, because they did what they were supposed to do. I got some emotions out that needed to come out in that song, and then moving on. So I also pick the best of the best, so I don't have to censor my songwriting, right?
Well, and I think that was kind of the perfect answer, that you don't rest on your laurels. You go out, you try and make something special every single time that you sit down to write. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think that's one of the things that people kind of outside of that realm don't necessarily understand is that you can write 100 songs and maybe only one or two of them is one that you feel like should see, the light of day. It should be a single. It should be a release.
Yeah.
When you sit down to write, what does your process look like when you're trying to build that kind of magic? I'm gonna say it again, magic formula. When you sit down to write a song, is it more you start with the lyrics or the melody, or does it kind of all come together at the same time?
I have a couple of different processes depending on whether I'm writing alone or if I'm writing with people. When I write with people, I also try to take into consideration their process, because sometimes people are more melody people, and some people want the lyrics right the first time, and I'm more of a let's just write something and then we can always tweak. When I sit down and write with another person, I usually try to have a goal in mind. So kind of say, I've gotten to the point now where I'm writing with other artists, and we look at each other and say, so what do you need right now? Like, are we writing for you or for me? Because then that person gets a little bit more say on how it shapes out. So for writing for me, I can say, I probably wouldn't even say that. But if the other person is like, oh, but I would totally say that, and we're writing for them, well, then we leave it, because it's got to fit the artist at that point. So if you write with an artist in mind, you also like come in with saying, an example is my song Warning Label. I had that idea on my list for a long time. I want to write a song, about having a warning label, or should come with a warning label. And I sat down with Miller Campbell, who I wrote it with, and we were both kind of like, so is it me that comes with a warning label? Is it him? Is it her? Is it all boys? Like what? So, and then it kind of takes shapes from an idea rather than I have these 3 chords that sound well together. So, and if I'm writing alone, I usually just kind of sing whenever I feel inspired, I just sing into my phone. So I have these little snippets, and then I carve out time, because if I don't do that, I never get it done. So I carve out time. Usually I go for a little getaway for 3 days or so. And then I sit down with all my instruments, and I start working on the things that I already had ideas for. So it's a little bit different depending on how I'm writing or who I'm writing with.
Do you have a special place that you go for those kind of getaways, or is that when you travel back to Nashville?
In Nashville, I only have time for co-writing. That's about it. My schedule was so busy when I am there.
I can imagine.
So it's kind of nice sometimes to come back and just, hang on a minute. But last year I went to, or was it earlier this year? I can't remember. I went to the Rockaway Beach in Oregon, on the Oregon coast, and found this little, Airbnb or whatever, just like a 2-bedroom little house thing, and it was quiet, and I could see the beach from the window, and that was important because I wanted to be inspired by looking at the beach. So that was nice. And then I wrote a whole bunch of songs there, and set up all my instruments and spent a couple of days and just wrote.
How many different instruments do you play?
Oh, I don't know the only instrument I really play is guitar, and I can only strum. That's all I can do. So it's enough though to write songs to. But my first instrument was piano. I'm just really rusty. And I've learned to kind of tinker away. That's what it's called. on the mandolin a little bit.
Okay.
So like those are the instruments I brought. So I brought a little piano, a little keyboard, and my guitars and my mandolin.
So what you're saying is we might hear more mandolin in songs in the future. I'm a big fan of
that. Yeah, maybe. I usually don't even play instruments on my own recordings anymore, because why would I when I have Grammy-winning acoustic guitar players and mandolin players sitting there? I'm almost like, no, I'm not touching an instrument in the same room as you. No, because it'd be just embarrassing.
Well, and then
I'll sing. It's fine.
Well, and on top of writing songs for yourself and putting out that music, you've also done a few covers. And one that really kind of blew me away was These Boots Are Made for Walking, which I would have guessed, if I hadn't heard the Nancy Sinatra version, I would have guessed that was your song just because it fits your style so well. How did you land on covering that song and releasing it?
Well, first, thank you, because it's nerve-wracking to do your first real cover.
Well, I can imagine.
Because there's always so many labels and so many opinions that go with cover songs. Mm-hmm. I landed on that one because it's sassy, and it's a song that everybody knows, even in Denmark. So it branched that divide, which I was very interested in. I wanted to put something, put out a cover song that not just the Americans would know, but also the Europeans. And that was actually really hard to find. So I finally just settled on this because that one actually, that one really does check off all the boxes. Like you said, it fits me. It's sassy, it's strong woman song, and it had that kind of 60s vibe to it, which I turned into more of a rockabilly, and that was really fun. That was really fun. And I tell you that the guys at Larry Beard Studios in Nashville, they spent more time on that song than any of the others, because they knew if we do a terrible job at this song, we'll never hear the end of it, because it's a classic, right? So they also took it very seriously. We have to do this better, if not at least as good.
Well, you're right. It takes a ton of guts to cover a song that's that popular and that well known, because you're right there. It's either people love it or people are going to hate it. And the better you do, the more people are going to fall on the happy side of that. But it's real easy with a song like that, or really any cover of that magnitude, to end up on the wrong side of it.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely. And so I feel like I got away with it pretty well. But I was a little nervous when I put it out, because it's a tall order, right?
It sounds fantastic. If you guys haven't heard it yet, head on out to Spotify and take a listen to it. But I kind of want to turn our attention a little bit. This will come out the week of Christmas, and you put out a Christmas project a few years ago called Yuletide in My Double Wide, which is a line I absolutely love. And you put out another Christmas song this year. Is there something about the Christmas season that just kind of gets those creative juices flowing?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's hard to write a Christmas song when it's not Christmas. So any Christmas song you hear is most likely from at least the year before, if not earlier.
That makes sense. It's hard to get in the jolly spirit in June.
Sure, in May.
Yeah.
At least for the writing part of it. Now we have to record it in May usually to make sure it comes out for Christmas. So that's always weird. You're jingling jingle bells, and it's 72 degrees outside. You got to get in the mood. With a little fake snow. There we go. Christmas songs are the holy grail of music, the way I see it. If you can get that one great Christmas song, I mean, who wouldn't have wanted to write the song All I Want for Christmas Is You, right? Or any of the other classic ones that are covered 4 billion times and get played over and over and over and over again. So it's the holy grail of music, and I think we are all just trying to make sure we have a little part in that genre.
Well, you did it again this year. You put out a Christmas song called I'm Home, and honestly, I'm just a sucker for any song that has parentheses, like the old 90s country songs where the entire album had parentheses in the song title.
This is true.
So this one, it's officially I'm Home, parentheses, and it's Christmas time. Give us the story behind the song.
So last Christmas, I was just about to quote, I gave you my heart. No, so last Christmas we were all at home, and I didn't actually get to hang out with my family, this side of not on any side of the world family. It was all just kind of cooped up in our little houses. And Linda Conway, who hosts Voice of a Woman in Ireland, she supports female artists all day long. She's amazing. She put out a challenge and said, who can write a Christmas song about family? And I was like, well, that sounds like fun. Like I could do that. And then the song just started flooding into my head. So I remember I had just gotten back from Nashville, and she's put out that challenge, and I woke up the next morning. I was so tired. I had a little bit of a migraine, but I just had to finish that song. So I wrote it immediately. And that's what came out of it. I had my, cause we didn't know when we were going to be back in the studio again. And so I had my live guitarist actually do the guitar work on it. And then this last summer I went to Nashville and recorded the vocals and had them mix it. So it's very simple, very sparse. And I basically took a whole bunch of dysfunctional family units and put into the same song. So they're not all my story, but they are all of them true stories. So
I was going to say, it feels like one of those songs that's extremely personal, but also extremely relatable. As I was going through it, you were talking about these different things, and I can just visualize that at my family Christmas every year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I even put myself in there as when I was younger. I changed names with everything, of course, because you don't want to put anybody on the spot, except Definitely. My dad. I'll put him on the spot. But so it says cousin Janie's kid just got her marketing degree, and now she thinks she knows it all. So that was a little nod to myself when I was younger, when I got my marketing degree.
It's kind of funny because that's actually the line that I related with most. I've got a marketing degree and I'm in marketing by trade. So that one really kind of jumped out at me. I was like, no, I get it. I've been there. My family tells me the same thing.
I could totally own it now. That's exactly what I was doing. I really thought I knew it all, and I think we can all relate to the younger generation growing up, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I know everything. And I mean, there's just so many little things that I managed to put in there, to the point where I was at least able to visualize it all happening in front of my eyes. And then add to that, I wrote it with an air of sentiment, because our family wasn't getting together. And so I was also missing that part. And I think a lot of people did, because even if they could have gotten together, a lot of us didn't, because of travel, because of countries, because of COVID, and so there was an extra element of heartfeltness to it because of that.
Well, let's let everybody get to know your family a little bit. This one's called I'm Home by Jessica Lynne Witty.
Mama's in the kitchen kicking everybody out. That's the only way she'll get things done. Daddy's giving Jason unsolicited advice. He's just watching out for everyone. And it's quaint and it's tight, and though we're packed around the table, we don't mind, 'cause we're home and it's Christmas time. always try to keep Grand Uncle Bill from getting drunk. Someone has to hide the alcohol. Cousin Janie's kid just got her marketing degree, and now she thinks she knows it all. And it's loud, but it's fun, and I can't imagine any other kind. 'Cause I'm home, and it's Christmas time. Church, rounding up the kids is just like herding cats. Then we sing all holy night and take time to notice where the good Lord's at. We always take a moment to remember Uncle Joe. Ever since we lost him to the war, somehow it helps us to cherish what we have and appreciate a little more. And it's late, but it's warm, and I'm snuggled up with fireplace and wine. Feels so good to belong. 'Cause I'm home, and it's Christmas time. I'm home, and it's Christmas time.
And you can find that one everywhere. That was I'm Home, It's Christmas Time by Jessica Lynne Witty. And Jessica, what can fans look forward to in 2022? You have anything in store?
Oh, yes, you bet I do. I'm going on. So I started a duo project with a guy named Chris Jones, and he is primarily a rock artist, but we do kind of rock country, duo. And we started working together. We put out the single Redneck Highway in October. And I love working with him. We're two front people, and we just have the most amazing dynamic on stage. So we're actually going on tour in February, March. We're going down to Florida in March. Yes.
Awesome.
I know, it sounds good. For the Florida Strawberry Festival. And I've never been, and it's supposed to be amazing. So I'm very excited about that. We're going to go record some more songs together as well. So there's a lot on that end of things that's going to happen with me and myself and Chris Jones. But then I also have a bunch of singles that I'm not going to do a single a month like I did last year, because that was a little much. But maybe every other month. How about that? And just a lot of live shows are lining up because people are coming out of the woodwork a little bit more than they were last year. So I'm excited. I'm excited for that. I'm excited to just get busy again and in a way that makes sense, because last year was very discombobulated last summer, and I'm looking forward to really getting to play some fun shows with my band and put out some more music that are in different veins, different chapters of my musical life that people haven't heard before. So lots of fun stuff.
I think 2022 was going to be kind of one for the record books, just across the board. Everybody's kind of coming out of COVID, especially artists like yourself, able to get back out onto the road and put themselves in front of fans. I'm personally super excited for it. But where can people follow you along on social media to kind of keep up to date with what you've got going on?
Sure. If you go to jessicalynwitty.com, you can kind of find it all there. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all over the board. It's Jessica Lynne Witty. On Twitter, it's J Lynne Witty, because they don't want me to have such a long name. But I'm on all the streaming platforms as well. So search the name, I should come right up.
Awesome. And you mentioned a Patreon earlier. Is all of that information on your website as well?
Yes, absolutely it is. And again, that's patreon.com/Jessica Lynne Witty. So you can go find that too. And you'll get all the behind the scenes stuff there. So and even songs that I may never put out, you get to hear those. And I just do a lot of pre-sharing. So anything that's new, upcoming, you'll hear it there first.
Well, awesome. Jessica, it has been an absolute blast. We definitely have to do this again in the future, maybe towards the end of 2022. But before we let you get out of here, we end the podcast pretty much the same way that we started it, with a segment we call the Final Four, just 4 questions that'll make you think a little bit. You up for it?
I'm up for it. Bring it on.
It's time for the Final Four.
Okay, here we go. Question number 1. What is your favorite place to watch a show in Nashville?
Or
I guess watch live music. Doesn't even have to be a full show.
I'd say probably the listening room.
Okay.
In Nashville, yeah, I think the listening room, because you get so close to some very sometimes famous artists. and I finally got to play there myself last time I was in town. So awesome. Very cool. It's a great room.
Nice.
And
I've heard great things about it. That's one of the venues I haven't been to yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to check that out. Okay. How about this one? And you can cheat if you need to, but who are the 3 most recently played artists on your Spotify or Apple?
I'm cheating. I'm going to look.
That's okay. If somebody asked me, I wouldn't know either.
I mean, one of them is going to be myself, because that's actually the song that's up right now. I can see that. But okay, so it's Pat Benatar and Janis Joplin and myself. That's funny.
That's a good pick. I like it.
Oh, well, hey, some strong women in there, right?
Okay, Jessica, when you're out on the road, what's the one restaurant or store that you have to stop at every time you see it?
Cracker Barrel.
Ooh, good pick. You were ready for that.
Oh, yeah. No, and that's because if I see a sign in the tour bus, my band will know, here it comes. Cracker Barrel, Cracker Barrel. I always say that, even if we don't stop. But I always
you just got to make sure they know that it's there.
Yes. And that I would like to stop. That's what they need to know.
Whether they listen or not is a different story.
Exactly.
Okay, Jessica, we're down to the final question. And this one, take as much time to answer or as little time as you want. If you could pick one thing for people to take away from your appearance on this podcast or your music in general, what would it be?
It would be to always listen to your own gut, like your own intuition, because it'll never lead you wrong. And even if it takes a while to get on the right path for you, just keep working on it. Just don't ever give up.
There you go. You heard it here. Trust your intuition. Never give up. Jessica, it has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for taking the time and jumping on here.
Thank you, Ty, so much. I would love to talk to you anytime. You're awesome.
Sounds good. Guys, that was another episode of the Tea Party Podcast. It's the country music podcast where you find new friends and new music like Jessica Lynne Witty and her new Christmas single, I'm Home.
Go tee off on the like button at facebook.com/Tea Party Podcast. This has been a Tea Party Communications production. Theme music created by Jesse Quandt. Announcer voiceovers by Gwinn. And as always, hosted by Ty Pisani.